Hey everyone, this is Austin Schur here with We Write About Music, and today I am so happy to be speaking again with Colin Wolfe of Smooth Retsina Glow. The band is back. They've got a new album out. It's called Through the Needle's Eye. I'm super excited to talk to them all about it. Colin, I want to thank you for being here. What's happening? It's been a year.
Yeah, it's been a year and another lifetime ago, and another band lineup ago,
Seriously.
and another, but in a good way. So, just to give your viewers a brief overview, we at Smooth
Please,
with Sam
yeah.
are now entering our fifth year. And when you last spoke with us for our fourth record, Gemini Ring, which we put out in 2023, you basically found a band that was basically splintering apart for a
Okay.
variety of reasons, which not to go into too much great detail, but I basically had to let go of our one co-singer before the album was released, and our drummer I had to let go for basically, I would say, cheating on the group in the sense that he was not being honest with his schedule and with other people he was
Sure.
playing with. And if you're in a band, in my opinion, it's sort of like cheating on your wife or your spouse or
A
husband.
hundred percent.
I
Listen,
mean,
a
maybe I
band
was
a band is
wrong,
a family. It's a family. And if you're
and
not fully into the family, then what are you doing here?
that when you violate that trust, there's no going back. It's like it is sacred.
I
It's cliche.
fully agree. Um,
um
yeah,
it would be
well,
like,
yeah,
I'll give you a little analogy here. It would be like if I told all these guys, why don't you just keep as band members 24/7, and then I'll leave you 1 or 2 weeks without a work because I'd gotten offered to go play in a musical again, which is part of what I
sure.
did before SRG started. And
Okay.
it's sort of a disingenuous. And so then our one bass player who I've still got a pretty good relationship with. Unfortunately, I had to take a leave to work off his student loans, and that's probably going to be a permanent departure. Even though I've still got basically a friendly basis with him. So
Sure.
to fill out the performing void, we have three bass subs that we usually call upon to fill for that fourth member. Grant Wagner, Billy Voigt, and Devin Wachter. And Grant, who has pretty much covered every instrument like guitar, he does little drums, and he also does bass, referred to me our new drummer, Quincy. So I met him about this time of year, roughly 1 year ago.
Okay.
And he learned the whole set because we had another sub drummer that I was just using to fill the performance dates. And he had some sort of an injury, and it was actually timely planned because then I was able to give Quincy the job offering, essentially, or jobs offering. And we had a date reserved for a studio session, and I thought about canceling it, but I had some material written. I said to Quincy, because he also knows the engineer well, like, can you just record this couple songs? Because I didn't really want to just pull the plug on our engineer because
Sure.
those people. It's sort of like when you people cancel gigs on us. It's like
A
you work
hundred
all the
percent.
time, book a show, and then someone pulls the rug out, and then you've got to scramble for like five any amount of time to try to get something to fill the void. So uh, I know what that's kind of like. So we started recording back in October and still gigging. So at this point, I would say the group lineup was basically myself and Quincy and any of those three bass subs that we were hopscotching between. But we still hadn't quite found a co-singer yet. And I would say we probably had about four songs done by year's end of 23 into 24. And then we had to play a benefit concert for my guitar teacher over at this venue in Bethlehem called the Ice House. We didn't have a date, and it wasn't like a bona fide paying show, but it was still cool to
Sure.
be asked you to participate. And occasionally we all got to give back. And
Of course.
it's just those things where, musicians occasionally have to do benefits to get basic needs and whatnot. So,
I understand.
that,
And listen, you're getting your name out there, and that's important.
and plus my guitar teacher, who I've known since I was 9, asked me to play a benefit. It was like,
You can't say
finally,
no to that.
it's like, oh, of
Exactly.
course I'll do it. And
Sure.
it was fun to hear everybody else as well. And there was this one older timer act there, and the one co-singer had brought her daughter Natalie Ixpraxia along, and she just so happened to be looking for an opportunity to do more music, and we just so happened to have a co-vocalist opening.
Sure.
And after we talked more, we kind of agreed that we were pretty much on the same page musically, although everybody in the group has their own areas that we you diverge off, and some
Of
people
course.
lean more this way or that way. And so we started putting her for backing vocals on a few of the songs. We put out our first single, Against Any Odds, back in March, and we kind of modeled it after the approach that we utilized for the previous year on Gemini Rain, where
Okay.
we release a single, and then you wait a couple more months, and then you
Yeah.
release another single and a video, and then you wait a couple more months. And but with a lot of the radio friends we'd made along the way, we had been able to draw that out, and we also made a couple other radio contact friends who helped get each of those singles out.
Yeah.
And all the while, we completed the record, and we decided we were going to time it for August 9th, because there's a festival in the Lehigh Valley called Music Fest, which we were playing at that Sunday. And we figured, let's put out our last single that we're going to use for it, and put it out the Friday of the performance. And even though we had to do some sizing issues for disc makers, it was like one of those last minute logistic
Of
things
course. Of
that's
course.
yeah, you just have to have a last minute logistical snafu to potentially derail the project from its drop date. And so we figured, do we just have to have a mail-in list for the album if it doesn't arrive? And we got the single out, and then as I was coming home from my show that evening, I think it was, the album was there on August 9th,
Awesome.
Friday, all uploaded on the digital platforms. And then Sunday, it's like, okay, we have the album, and it's like
And here it
48 hours.
is. Yeah.
It's so literally all resolved on the right note. And it came through when it needed, So, but
Amazing.
it's one of those, it's like
A
when you're
labor
so
of
behind.
love.
Yes, very much so.
Yes. Well, listen, I'm thrilled that I got the backstory here, and I'm happy that you're able to move forward because again, bands can be extremely difficult. They're dysfunctional
Right,
families at times, they're loving families
right.
at times, but you're here. The singles were out and they were great, and the album is out, and it's truly like surpassed my expectations. The one thing that I found here, I mean, among many things, is that it's just fun. Like literally, like the album, you can feel how much fun you're having in the inflections and the vocals and the instrumentation. Like it's just an overwhelmingly good time. There's tons of variation on it, from straightforward rockers to more like pop rocky hits, but at the same time, it still feels incredibly cohesive as a record. So I kind of want to get in the headspace of like the blueprints of making this thing. What did you take from the last record with a different lineup, and how did you apply different things in order to come up with this new one?
I'm glad you say that it's enjoyable to listen to, because let me tell you, it was really hard to write music for it when I was in the
Oh,
midst
I
of
bet.
grade school. It's one of those things where I thought, oh, I've always thought that I can always keep writing. A writer's block will never happen to me, and I know how to do this, that, and the other to make sure it doesn't
Sure.
sound cliched. But eventually, it can reach a point for any artist or writer when everything you're doing starts sounding the same.
Sure.
And I think about this time of year last year that I was pretty stumped creatively for the first time, and
Yeah.
I don't even know how long. I just thought I could not write. It was like no inspiration there, or if there was inspiration, it wasn't really sounding really natural,
Yeah.
and it wasn't really exciting. And it was like one of those things where everything I was writing to my ear sounded the same. And
Sure.
so I think part of it was just about, you know, trying to break a little from what I had done in the past musically. One thing that we started doing moving ahead, just out of for a vocal and to a certain extent sonic aesthetics, is tuning down to D standard, which we do on a couple of
Okay.
songs. it also is a lot easier on my voice because if
Sure.
you're lower and flat, all the times I sung in the guitar keys like E, A, D, G, B, it always felt like it was a little too sharp for my voice.
I
And the morning
understand.
afterwards, it's like, why do I feel like I've just been choked or something like that? And then you go
Sure,
on and
sure.
do another 2 hours, and then the morning afterwards, you also feel fatigued. So that was one thing that has become sort of a staple, is just the standard, because we're not going to do drop A anytime soon, or because we're clearly not a sludge metal group, and nothing
Yeah.
against those artists, but it's not who we are. But at the same time, just taking it down a little for my range, especially, um, makes it a lot more
Yeah.
enjoyable to sing, and I can hit the notes a little bit more accurately. So,
Completely understand.
as far as the writing inspiration, the one thing that I should also point out is Natalie, Quincy, and I had not known each other at all. So if you really want to talk
Yeah.
about a blind date situation, this is perhaps the quintessential record of three
I will
people
say
who
you wouldn't
literally.
be able to tell that. You can feel like the harmonization of people, and not once during my listen was I ever like, is this a new band? Like it's still the thing that I took from it is like not knowing that it's a new lineup, but experiencing a new sound and kind of like a revitalization from what I've heard in the past.
Mhm.
So, you know, obviously it's like going into an office and working your first day. If you're working on a team, you don't know people, but you kind of just have to make it work. And you've made it work here. Like you would
Yeah.
never be able to tell, like, yeah, they're complete strangers. Obviously, you develop the relationships, but it becomes closer after time.
Oh yeah, yeah. And the one thing moving ahead with these guys is, now that we all basically know each other pretty well, you do lose a little of the spontaneity that does come
Sure.
about from a blind date.
Yeah.
And I think part of the way that, if you want to say the record feels the way is that it does, and if you want to say it's a more creative record than what you've heard from us in the past, that's probably because we don't know exactly how we quite roll at this
Sure.
stage. I will also counter that by saying that Quincy Willen is a very seasoned drummer with
Yeah.
a lot of mileage behind him, so to speak. And Natalie had, on the other hand, although she has the voice, had never sung publicly in 15 years.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, I mean
Wow.
she had the voice, but she hadn't sung like in a live time setting, if you will, for a
Could have
long
fooled
while.
me.
I don't think she had any studio experience. I'll have to ask her about that. But it was a pretty interesting situation for me to sort of mediate between a very experienced drummer and an inexperienced singer, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, they had
Of course.
the 10,000 hours or whatever, but it's
Sure.
just a unique experience, So,
Right.
and I think it was just sort of predestined because a lot of our musical influences were sort of similar, and it's just a very good. You're fortunate when you have three people that you can really vibe with artistically, and their listening tastes are somewhat similar. So you're not going to fool them if you go to them and say, "Hey, we're going to play the song in 5/4,
Of
or the
course.
song's in these keys, or use weird chords, or whatever you want to say like that." It was like that. This band actually is helping me create, because now I can really
Totally.
uh, exhaust whatever I've been holding on to all these years.
Right.
And
And I also feel like because there is no prior relationship, you can kind of reinvent everything. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that it's completely, I mean, it genre-wise, it's definitely different from the last record, but I feel at the same time, it kind of gives you the opportunity to steer things in a direction that you might not have. Because if you had gone forward with the original lineup, you probably just would have, shifted the sound a little bit. because it's what you were used to. This
Mhm.
gives you the opportunity to kind of do whatever you want, but still stay in the lane of the band.
Yeah. Yeah, and moving ahead, that's definitely one thing that we it's going to be sort of a balancing game because we've definitely developed another level of our sonic quality that
Right.
deserves to be built upon, but at the same time, there still is room for more new territories to be explored sonically,
100%.
if you call it like that.
Right.
So it's going to be an interesting balancing act of saying, okay, short of saying we have a sound now, we have to really capitalize on whatever elements really were successful. And there's a couple things that I can think of besides having Natalie sing more vocals, of course, but that's her
Yeah.
first record. And then there's also that the side where you want to do something a little bit more left field or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, I 100% agree. And listen, I kind of want to, uh, process, production, just creation side of things. What were the conversations like when you like all sat down and you mapped out this is the type of record that we want to make here? Because the thing that I find is that, yeah, this record is obviously rock based, but there's also a ton more happening at the same time. Like you feature so many different subgenres, so many different sound styles, and yada yada. But at the same time, it still feels original and fresh. Was there a conversation or did it kind of just happen out of jams?
Combination of the two. It was just sort of as we got to know each other more and more. Um, I think I kind of knew the guys a little bit more than I had in the past. Like, first thing we ever did was Never Conform, which was the third song on the record that we recorded back in October. And that actually came about as a result of something that I had done in 2023 with, before the new lineup came together. It was just something we were in the studio screwing around with when we were
Sure.
wrapping up My Rain, and I just held on to it. And so when you listen to that song, you are literally listening to Quincy and I playing for the first time. So
Awesome.
it's a moment in history.
That's really cool.
Yeah, one thing I've always done is I've always journaled when we're going in and what take it'll be that is chosen as the master, just because
Yeah,
I think it helps keep you grounded to your past a little bit, where you
absolutely.
hear things. So as we kind of got to know each other more and more, like we would talk about certain artists that we would like. And I also looked into my composition portfolios because I have quite a few things that I've written that I've hadn't recorded at the time, just because it just didn't feel like it was ready to be developed yet or released yet. And occasionally, when you are in a writer's block, that's what you can go to. It's not
100%.
a case of even if it's older songs. One thing that I've noticed is the way that I've written in the past is going to be a little bit different to how it is now, and I'm sure there's quite a few artists you can make that case about. And it just felt that it was good to finally get them recorded.
Yeah,
And
that's always the
like
goal.
one song, Virtuality, I actually wrote during the lockdown season, and I just had that floating in my composition portfolio on what was that thing, Finale. And
Yeah,
then I really decided, okay, I guess this is time to use it because it sounds a little bit different and it looks a little bit different than what I've got going on. And it was good because I finally had that released after all these years. Some things were kind of just put together on the go, like Fervor, the most recent single that we put out,
sure.
the second one. Uh, I'm thinking what else comes to mind. Fainting Grace and Lockstep were also kind of things that I wrote then. Against Any Odds, the first song that leads off the
Yeah.
album, was just basically a riff that I had originated out of a jam session with another friend of mine. So I have a friend who has
Nice.
sold me quite a few of the more like vintage guitars that I've got,
Right.
and I was hanging with at him. I just stumbled on the riff, and I think when you hit something that if you really really like, your first
You
instinct
know.
is record, write it down.
Exactly.
And then I think when I saw Quincy a few days later, I had the riff over and we just ran it through. And the thing about that was it really came about quickly.
Sure.
It only took about half an hour to write. I really think about half an hour to write. So it was like about maybe 15 minutes for the music. And I did a stream of consciousness thing for the lyric, which occasionally does work. But
Yeah.
I would say you have to, some people, at least myself, you have to work yourself up to get to that point to be able to just improvise,
A thousand.
at
Yeah, you have to be
any
technically
level.
good at your instrument. You can't just get up there and figure it out. Um, something I want to know here is like, obviously, I'm going to push people to listen to the entire thing because I think it deserves the entire front to back listen. But are
Mhm.
there like one or two songs here that you're particularly proud of, either how they were made or just ones that you think will resonate with the listener?
Fervor, because it is written in what your listeners will call an odd time signature, 5/4.
Okay.
And it's actually one of our most popular song on Spotify, which for me is sort of what I've always hoped for because I've always admired artists from childhood onward, like King Crimson or Frank Zappa, all the way
Yeah.
going to like King Gizzard, who use odd time. And even though it's
Agreed.
nothing new, like you only need to look back to Dave Brubeck for any
Right.
historical analysis, it's particularly gratifying that I've written or we put together a song. Okay, I did write the song, but they helped
Yeah.
it out a lot of the way because Quincy's drumming is really integral to the song, and Natalie's vocal really just takes it up another couple notches to really get the whole of some of the parts is really a perfect description for it there. But
Nice.
um, so that is going to be one that I particularly connect with. Another one I would really connect with is "Against Any Odds," the song that leads it off. Not just because I sing about it, but I think it's got a message about. Even though I'm singing it from like my perspective about whatever else I've experienced in the making of this record or life or whatever, I think that just about anybody can get behind that one as well. And I would say Never Conform as well, just because, I mean, go figure that I'm picking the singles. But the thing that
They're singles for a reason, but people will find what they will like best on deeper cuts. Like that's just how it works.
yeah, we can get to, I'll throw a deep cut. But the thing that I like about Never Conform a lot is it has a key change from one key to another that I think is sort of starting to make a bit of a comeback in popular music. And
Okay.
there was some like Dave Bennett Piano featured a video the other day that I have to watch a little bit more, where it showed some artist who had used a key change. So like a really drastic key change, not like a truck driver key change. Like
Sure.
and this song basically goes from A minor to C minor when you just shift it up there, and Natalie holds down the chorus for that part, and it also gets back to the original A minor key in a sort of interesting way. And as far as a deep cut, I would say the title track, just because it's a little more grungier, if you want to call it that, but at the
Sure.
same time, it doesn't verge into um, too overbearingly sort of stuff, which it's not where I am vocally at all. So
Hey
I
man,
know
listen, you take chances. That's what it's about. You make the music that pushes boundaries and you do things that you want to do.
quite so. And if you really want a deep cut that is kind of different from the a lot of the mood of the record. I would say the fourth song, "Relapse Collapse," even though we had to do that song about 11 takes until we finally got it right. It was like we were
Damn.
doing for. And the good thing about it was it's a short song. It's our shortest song so far, so it is sort of something that almost doesn't quite fit in with the album. But at the same time, you have to note that Queen did stuff like that on all their records where they
Of
have
course.
things come out from left field, so to speak, and almost sound like a different group to some extent.
Very true.
And I've listened to the whole album, obviously, just to relearn it for performing live. But I think as far as like a deep cut that people would like, it's going to vary person to person.
Of course,
And
that's the magic of the music is people will listen and they'll resonate with whatever, like what you may think is the catchiest song, someone might think the complete opposite, and that's the magic of it all.
oh yeah, quite so, quite so.
Totally. Um, Listen, I want to start to wrap this up, but before I do so, I kind of want to hear from you, like, before someone listens to this, do you think there's any more important information they should know before they check it out?
As far as the making of the album, or about who we are as a group, or
Literally anything. Any just import anything that you're like, hey, you should know this before you check it out.
uh, you should know, for starters, that even though I did say at the beginning that this is a completely new lineup of Smooth Retsina Glow, in the sense that some bands like the Smashing Pumpkins or King Crimson or Jethro Tull might revolve around one or two members who
Yeah.
are the pivot figures for the whole band in their career's entirety. And you are hearing a pretty unique blind date crash course in music,
Right.
literally. And you are you're listening to something that is really unique in the sense that none of the members knew each other at all prior to
Yeah.
being bandmates. The closest thing, this is just a small world sort of thing. Natalie and I did attend Kutztown, or KU as we call it, out slightly to the west of where we are in PA, but we didn't know it at the time.
Okay.
And so this is only after the fact, and
That
it's
is a
like
small world.
increasingly it is. And so I sort of this album will always stick with me, particularly just because, in the sense that we had to, or I had to rebuild SRG from scratch,
Right.
and still are, because we still need to find the right bass player for us, because each three of the guys that we work with either is committed with other bands and they only do it on a fill-in sort of basis, or they're slightly incompatible for one reason or another. Like they're good enough to do the gig, but as far as being the long-term member, it's still a bit of an open
Yeah.
question, in particularly one, even though we all get on with them fine. But uh, so I would say just listen to the album, and if you don't think that, if you would, how do I say it properly? If you think that it was like guys who known each other all their lives, you're wrong.
You're
So that
wrong.
that
And listen, the love comes through in the music, let me say. Colin, I want to sincerely thank you so much. I like talking to you because you actually open up about the music and you're not short about it. For anyone who's listened, no, I'm serious. People who listen, like, some of the magic of enjoying music is knowing about it and getting the backstory on it. And that's why I've really enjoyed this conversation. I also want to plug the music one more time before we wrap up here. So, for anyone out there who didn't know, this is Colin Wolf. The band is Smooth Retsina Glow. The record is Through the Needle's Eye. Obviously, we're going to have the links everywhere so that you can listen, share, follow along, stay tuned for more, maybe hit a show. And truly, man, I just want to thank you so much. It means a lot.
My pleasure talking to you again, Austin. We'll definitely be scheduling for 25 because I got to start writing for the next record soon.
I can't wait, man. Thank you again, and I'll talk to you soon.
Pleasure. See you soon. Later.
See you later. Bye bye.